Welcome back, everybody, to Best Books Ever. According to Tyler, that is me. And yeah, we're back. Episode 2, doing Mistborn Final Empire. As you can see, chapters 9 through 15, otherwise known as Part 2. I forget what the parts, I think each of the parts have names, but Part 2, 9 through 15, all that stuff. Yeah. So yeah, we're just going to talk about it. Have a good time. If you haven't seen the first one, or listen to it, go do that, because you'll be spoiled. So, lots of stuff here. Like I said, I was very excited to get to this part because um, first part was all about kind of introductions, characters, setting, plot, all the all the buzzwords for a book. Part two, though, is all right. We're in it. Let's do it. So, I have a bunch of different stuff, kind of intertwined, right? But the biggest thing, I mean, like we did with the last part, this part, same deal. Let's start with the ending. Uh, we don't know if Vin's gonna live, right? We had that huge action sequence at the end, um, which I guess is kind of a pattern, right? Because we had a pretty big one at part one with Kelsier, but now we have one with Kelsier and Vin going to Credit Shaw. Um, this was huge, right? We saw them fight a bunch of Inquisitors. Again, I think that was a big question that we would have going into part two and just beyond, right? I think we even talked about it last time where um, Inquisitors are like the big question mark. Obviously, we got the Lord Ruler. He's like on a whole other level, right? He's God or a sliver of God, whatever. But the initial, the like more grounded, I guess, uh, question and opposition to their plan is the Inquisitors, because Lord Ruler probably not going to fight them unless like they're able to best every other part of his defense. Then he'll come out, I'm sure. And again, he's God, so like whatever. But the Inquisitor is going to be real hard to beat. Garrison could be done, right? They already have plans for that to get the Garrison out of here. But the Inquisitor's not going to be super easy. So I think that's a big question we had was how powerful are they really? Is it all just stories, fairy tales, Because even like we saw Mistrace, and Mistrace are this like unknown being. They're like ghosts, but also kind of zombies, sort of. And then we meet them, and it's like, oh, they're pretty docile. Kelsier talks about how they don't eat like living people or anything. They will follow you, but just in the hopes that you drop some sort of food or something that they can pick up and use. So it's like, something like that where it's like our Inquisitors the same way where they're probably pretty powerful, but is it just people telling stories and then they get twisted and inflated, all that stuff. But then we do see it here. We're like, oh no, Inquisitors are the real deal, because we haven't seen too many Mistborns. Just Kelsier and Vin being very inexperienced, and Kelsier being uh, honestly not as experienced as we may see. Because we know that he only got snapped like months ago, I think. I think it was like a year or less, maybe. Um, so I imagine someone that was a Mistborn since they were a child, like these Mistborns that are born and they're in the nobility, which we haven't met any of them yet, to my knowledge. I don't think we have, but maybe we have and I just forgot. Again, I have, read the book already, but no future spoilers. Um, Probably a lot more powerful, a lot more intuitive with all their powers. Um, but even that, like two of them together, Kelsier and Vin, like one Inquisitor seemed like it was going to be too much, and there's like three or four of them. It was crazy. And then even like the idea of them going through it, and I love Kelsier and Vin's chemistry, and their interactions are some of the best parts of the book so far. Especially since Vin seems a lot more comfortable with them, and she can kind of give it back to him a little bit. And then just that conversation where they both know that Kelsier can tell Vin to like go to her room, but Vin's not. She's gonna sneak out. Like you're gonna have to incapacitate her, like knock her out or something. it's not going to work, so I'm bringing her there. And then just how Brandon was able to make Credit Shaw such a mystery and such a looming presence. Where we even see the Lord Ruler, I suppose, is the one who's just like emanates this sad, miserable feeling. Like he's that powerful. So again, kind of getting little breadcrumbs here and there for him. But then, yeah, and then them fighting the Inquisitors, it seemed to be going way too well. So that was really tough. That was really tough to watch because, we love Vin, we love Kelsier. We want them to succeed because of the knowledge that we have. Lord Ruler bad, his reign bad. So, we want to see them win, and then for the Inquisitor just to mop the floor with them. Like, no competition. They seem way too powerful. They seem like they can use a lot of the different elementic powers. And then even like, because we don't see it really from Kelsier's perspective, we see it from Vin's perspective, and the one Inquisitor just following her, and it's like, how does he? I guess I think they're all male. How does he know where she is? Like, even using her little tricks to like get rid of Kelsier in the past, like she uses those, and like he's still able to follow her, and he's so fast, and like his stamina and everything. Like these guys are monsters, figuratively and literally, it seems. I don't know. I just think Brandon did such a good job of despair in this part, to be like it, for it to start, and it to be like, oh, it's actually going pretty, like, Kelsier taking people out. We do have some of the questionable morality even when it comes to Vin, where Vin, she even says that this is the first time she's killed anybody. Reen was always the one to murder in their like little raids or burglaries or whatever. So for that to happen, but other than that, for the most part, seem to be going very well. Like the other people, they do not exaggerate how good Mistborn are to have on your side. But then Inquisitors just shut all that down. And then just, again, that one scene where Vin is depleted, just in every sense of the word. And her to be like reverting back to her old self, to be like, okay, I gotta hide, I gotta find a shadow, I gotta make myself look small. Like that was really, really hard to read. And then for the Inquisitor to find her, and at that point it's just like, she's dead. That's it. There's 3 more parts of this book and 2 more books, and Vin isn't in them. She's dead. And then for the figure, at that time we didn't know, for that figure to save her, us to hear like, some like crunching sound, Inquisitor down, someone saving her, she thinks it's Kelsier, turns out to be Sazed, was huge. It was a huge win. And then for the after, almost like the epilogue to the part where, because at that point they bring us back up, they're like, oh, saved Vin, everyone's gonna be fine, we cut, Kelsier's safe, like he seems perfectly okay. Us to have like a little bit of uplifting spirit, and then for them to come back and be like, Vin's not doing well. And even for it to end with, we don't know if Vin's gonna survive. Like we have no idea if she actually lives through this. And then I do love, talked about it last time, but the relationship with all the people in the crew, I think, is something very special. And I think that is one of the things that holds these characters together, because they are just destroying Kelsier. Because it's like, why would you take her with you? Why, like, this doesn't make any sense. You didn't tell anyone. You didn't, like, so many things, so many mistakes that he made. And, in a sense, it's like, well, I did them. There's nothing we can do about it now. Like, you can yell at me all you want, but what's done is done. But also, it's like, you are too reckless. Like, you could have tried harder. You could have told some of us, you could have not gone tonight, because they even look at his progress and it's like, you didn't learn anything. You didn't learn what was in the secret door. You almost got yourself killed, almost got Vin killed. Like, useless waste of time. So yeah, I really like how this chapter ends, or this part ends, because even contrasting part one, where it was kind of like uh, happier with like all the crew together, us kind of, getting everyone's parts. Um, I was finally feeling we have a direction with the book, and then for this part to end and be like, yeah, Vin's not looking good. Like, people who are bigger than her, stronger than her, more experienced than her have died for less, with like, less physical injuries. Um, but yeah, so great ending to have that roller coaster, and then just like, just punching in the face of reality, where it's like, oh, we love these characters, but this is not going to be easy. Like, this is truly going to be as impossible as it sounds. Where it's like the Inquisitors are a problem. Like, Saza talked about kind of like taking care of him, like he'll deal with it, but it's like I don't think he can. Even with two Mistborn, it's like they have to have a weakness of some sort. We're already working on the 11th medal with the Lord Ruler, but what about the Inquisitors? what about these guys over here? So, great ending, great cliffhanger ending. Some other stuff though that we have, lots of stuff branches off of that though. Um, I guess real quick, I do just want to mention they did say there's about 20 Steel Inquisitors. I know that was a big question I had. With the first part, like how many are there? How many do they have to deal with? They say there's about 20 of them in all of Luthadel. So that's probably around the number that they're gonna have to deal with. I imagine 20 seems like too much. Too many Inquisitors to deal with. I would not want that task. So yeah, there's that. Another big thing I wanted to get into was Sazed, because he is a new character. We saw him at the end of the last part a little bit, but not too much. Just a little bit to see a little bit of his personality, face value, who he is. He's Terrace. He's a servant to Kelsier. We see that he's a little different than other Terrace, though. He's like making snide jokes and stuff like that. But then this part, they really throw a like blanket of mystery on him, especially through Vin's eyes, right? It's like, who is Sazed really? We kind of learned a little bit about everyone, but it's like Sazed's here. He's the one that's kind of helping her become Valet Renew. But other than that, there's little questions where it's like, when they went to go see Cayman's lair just be ripped apart by Inquisitors, Kelsier did not want to bring Vin because of how dangerous it could possibly be. Inquisitors maybe lurking around there or something, right? But he was perfectly okay with bringing Sazed. Very strange, because on one hand it could be like, oh, well, he's the servant, so he comes and he kind of, whatever, right? But for the most part, like, does he have, she was thinking, like, does he have any experience? Like, can he actually fight? Like, is there, maybe he's quick and he could run away or something? Just little things too, where Vin used Tin to listen in on Kelsier's, his little like hushed conversation, and Saza definitely noticed it. Again, you can't really see the use of allomancy. You can feel allomancy use if you use like bronze, I think, right? One of those. Copper, I don't know. But for some reason, like Vin looked at Sazed, and she could tell that Sazed was intuitively, just like finding out, what he was doing. So it's like, oh, does he know allomancy? Does he, what's going on there? And then they talk about, they briefly mention metal mines, but they don't really explain what those are. And it's like, well, what's that? Is that like some kind of sort of like technique, or is it like some like, we know it's some sort of record keeping tool or something, because we talk about him being a keeper, him just having a lot of knowledge. We see him, him and Kelsier at the very end kind of briefly mention that. So like, okay, what's that? And then even at the very end, kind of with that, Kelsier does, I think he says it, but also thinks it, how he would not want, to be on like the wrong side of his anger, or something like that. And, so even with that, it's like, what's going on with Sazed? Like, is he secretly like the strongest member of their group? We just don't know it, because right now, with the information we have, like I would guess he doesn't know Allomancy, because I feel like he would have used it by now, and like Vin would have felt it or something. And even with that, it's like, well, he's probably not a Mistborn, because I feel like that'd be pretty hard to hide, and it also wouldn't really be a secret. Like imagine one of them would have told. I mean, like if he was a Mistborn, I just don't think it'd be a secret. And there have been a couple times where like Sazed was talking to Vin, and Sazed has like mentioned some other methods that he has, but he's obviously hasn't told her, and all that. So there is something going on with him that I hope we learn very soon. Um, Hold on 1 second. I gotta do something. 1 second. Give me 5 seconds. Okay. Anyway, um, right, Sazed. Yeah. So so there's definitely something going on with Sazed, but that's a little mystery that they introduced with this part. New characters, and again, like even branching off of Sazed, like we don't really know too much about the other characters either. I would hope that we get more into them, because right now they are very much side characters. We're like Breeze, Ham, like we do know like a little bit, but like we don't really know their life. Like, is that even necessary? Maybe this is just a crew, you know. But speaking of Breeze, that was another thing I wanted to touch on. I think that is something that we mentioned last time, maybe. About like Kelsier, or maybe it happened in this part. I don't know. Kelsier not having the time to train Vin by himself, and Vin being a little upset. But then, the thought process there is like, well, Kelsier's good, but Mistborn inherently probably aren't masters of any of the allomantic powers, right? Because they have all of them, so they have the same amount of time, like life, as everyone else does, but they split that up into 8 different allomantic powers. Whereas if you just know one, you spend your whole life honing in on that one. So we imagine that Breeze probably better at using soothing than Kelsier is. Ham probably better with the physicality stuff. Because he burns pewter than Kelsier. And all that. Same thing with clubs. The whole like smoking thing. So makes sense, right? I do love that scene itself. Them just being at the restaurant or whatever. Trying to recruit other people. Very cool, very awesome. Hopefully they get a lot of people. Seems like it's not fast enough, but they're gonna have to figure that out. But the real gem of that scene was them showcasing that. It's like, oh yeah, Breeze is really good at soothing, and it does, back up Kelsier's point and his motives of throwing Vin there, Vin being upset that she's just kind of being tossed aside, doesn't get to learn from the master Kelsier, and then realizes, oh, this is actually better for me. And it's great because we see her thoughts, and she's like, I need everyone to to teach me their ability. Like she immediately flips from, oh, he's just tossing me aside, throwing me to the dregs. And then she sees what Breeze does and is like, Breeze is 10 times better at soothing than Kelsier ever will be. you know, like subtleties and the thought process behind it. Love that. So yeah, very, very cool there. I'm excited to see hopefully more just like training. We haven't really seen a whole lot with the time jump. It was something I thought was really cool too that they did. Time jump, we don't need to see every day of the next, I think it's year that they're giving them to like prepare for the heist and whatever. And when you say every day, so they did a little bit of time jump. We see her sparring with Kelsier, them kind of going back and forth. It's really cool because they open it up and we have no idea it's Kelsier. You probably could have guessed, but we don't know until he like catches her and it's like, oh, and then Kelsier, was like skulked up behind me or whatever. I don't know. It's like, oh, it's Kelsier. They were sparring. It wasn't a real threat. But that was really cool to see them go back and forth. But yeah, so kind of two things branching off of that. One, the training stuff, that was a cool scene. Like I said, I would like to see more actual training, actual like learning, instead of just, oh yeah, in the past 4 weeks, Breeze has been training me and now I'm great at soothing. It's like, well, no, I want to actually see what Breeze teaches you and then maybe what Ham teaches her with pewter and clubs with smoking. And I think that's everyone that has allomancy, unless I'm missing someone, but I don't think so. And then maybe Kelsier or Sazed or someone knows other people that can help her with the other ones. But yeah, that is one wish of mine, is to like see her actually train and actually do that instead of just a montage and then 6 months later, oh, she's a master. She's a master at everything. I understand why they did it so far though, because it's not really necessary at this point. And then the other branch was actually just like the aftermath of their sparring and Kelsier sort of in his own thoughts. And then even, I think later on talking to Sazed, he kind of mentioned it as well, but basically the conclusion that they've come to so far in terms of Vin's progress with that, and also the Valette stuff, which we'll talk about next, is that Vin is really good. Like, not really good, like she is scarily good, and she's progressing at a ridiculous rate. Like she should not be this good at allomancy as she is. Obviously there's some things that she can't control, like they very much point out, hey, don't get into a shoving match with someone because you are way too small, way too light. Like, you are going to lose every time. And we do see that, I think, briefly in the Krennic Shaw moment, in that whole scene where she does push at one point. It's like, oh no, should not be doing that. You gotta think of other ways. Other than that, it's like, no, she's ridiculous. Like the amount of time, I think it's months. I don't think they say exactly. Yeah. I think they just say it's been like a few months. So I'm gonna say 3 months, let's say. She is very, very good for only 3 months of training. And so that kind of, maybe throw some breadcrumbs there where it's like, maybe she ends up being better than Kelsier. I don't know how that's possible. Maybe just two different people. She's just naturally gifted at allomancy, and she just picks up on things. I just think that was very important to point out, because he made it a point to say it, and then even Sazed agreed, where he was like, yeah, like she's very attentive. And then moving on to kind of more of that, but on the Lady Valette stuff. Okay, so first we had the training, right? Which I just want to mention. He says that about her as well, where she's very good at memorization. She's very good at like putting things into practice. They even have had like a few practice dinners, and she's like sat in on some of the real dinners with some people, with Lord Renew. Done very, very well. I do like some of the slyness though, where he praises her in a lot of different ways, but then he also says that like basically that Vin is still Vin, where she will take every moment to not train because she probably hates this. She's like, I don't want to, like, I would, like, we even see her thoughts a few times where she's training or whatever, or she's getting a haircut, which I really like that scene too because, she kind of comes out of it. She hates it. She's like, I don't want to get a haircut. She's feeling like, I don't want someone with scissors that close to my neck. But then she comes out of it, and it's like, oh, she actually looks like female. She actually looks, because the whole time she's always cut her hair super short. That was Reen's whole thing of like, oh, we you want people to think of you as a thief first and a girl second. That'll be safe for you. But then Kelsier gives her that boost of confidence there as well. It's like, oh, it looks nice. All that. So very nice moment there. Very, very touching moment, which does grow into her being Lady Villette. But yeah, just like her finding every possible avenue to not train, to not do it, where like Sazed's like, oh, if you tell her that we're gonna, at this time meet at Manor Renew, we're gonna meet here. It's like, okay, she'll be here, but you didn't specify what room, so it's like, oh, she's here. She followed what you said, but she's in some random room. So now I have to spend 30 minutes looking in every room to try to find her, So it's like little sly stuff like that of like, oh, well, I followed your instructions to a T. So I thought that was funny. But then again, moving into the Lady Renette stuff, or Villette. We spent a lot of time on this, but I think it was important. I'm sure we'll see more parties as well, especially with how they're kind of leaning into the whole Ellen stuff. But yeah, I really like this for a few reasons. I think, first off, we know the importance of this, trying to have a person on the inside learn certain things, right? Point number one. But then I also like the growth of Vin, where it's like, I don't think by the end of this she's gonna like this more than being a Mistborn. That's not gonna happen in my mind. But I do like it at least growing her character and her confidence, where she was very, very nervous, and you could even see on Sazed's face that he was nervous for her, because in his mind he's like, she's not composed mentally. This might go bad. I'm nervous for her. But then I love her like way of growing out of it, where she's like, oh, no one actually cares about me. No one cares about Vin. No one even really cares about Lady Villette. They just care about my image, basically. So not actually me as a person, but what I look like, I suppose. She has this great analogy to like wearing a mask or a cloak or whatever, where she's like, oh, but in this case, the dress and the makeup and the earrings, the jewelry and all that's like my cloak. That's what they're looking at. They're trying to almost like appraise my worth. But they don't actually care about me, and they definitely don't care about Vin. I mean, they don't even know Vin exists. And that kind of, loosens her shoulders a little bit, and she's like, oh, okay, I got this. So I really do like that, because that's her own way, her own like personal way to be like, oh, none of this is real. I don't really have to worry about this. No one even really cares about me. No one's looking at me. They're looking at the surface, but not actually who I am. So I thought it was a very nice way to look at it. And then we just move on to the Ellen stuff. Ellen, not quite the prince, I guess, of the most powerful house in Luthadel. Not exactly what we would imagine. But yeah, we it turns out that he is very important, and that little conversation. Again, they weren't really there. They didn't know about like the delivery and all that stuff, but apparently very important, and it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough because on one hand, it's like, okay, you don't ever talk to him, don't ever see him. In fact, we might want to concoct something where you like insult him. That way he doesn't want to talk to you anymore. Because if for some reason Vin does end up catching his fancy, then that's gonna put every eye on her. It's like, oh, he is the most eligible bachelor in all of Lutherdale. Like he is next up to be the like leader of the most powerful house Venture. And so like if if you're seen with him, then everyone's gonna come after you. It's not gonna be good. It's gonna be really bad. Like this is the opposite. We're like we want you to be seen, but we don't want you to be seen. You know. But we can we'll look into Vin's mind a little bit and just keep thinking about him. You know, he's very different than anyone else that that she's met. He's the only one that was able to break down her walls of I can't think of the word. Just like getting through to her and actually talking to her. She even mentioned it where she's like, "Oh, for that moment, I wasn't Valette. I was Vin. I was talking to Ellen as Vin." And the only people I've ever done that with is like Kelsier and Sazed and etc. So it's like a little bit of stuff there. We'll see how we take that. I mean, I again, if I were to make a prediction, I don't think she would have the heart to go as far as to do what they sort of threw out there to like embarrass him or insult him or something. I don't really think she could do that. But it is very possible for them to just kind of convince her, and also logically what they're saying makes sense. It's like, hey, you don't want to get close to him because if you do, everyone's gonna be looking at you. They're all gonna rumors are gonna swirl, and there's gonna be a lot more attention on you that we don't need. That kind of goes against the purpose of you going to these things. So I could see her being convinced of that and kind of arm's distance. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Saza did say we're gonna go to like, ideally we want you to go to like 2 to 3 balls a week. That's a lot. That was very much. I didn't remember that, but when Saza was like, oh yeah, they throw one of these like every day. I'm like, every day. You guys have nothing better to do every day. But yeah, 2 to 3 a week sounds very daunting, but it makes sense, especially when this is where all the gossip happens. You make connections, you make deals, understandings, agreements, whatever. Makes sense. Let's see. Oh, that's pretty much it, honestly. I guess the last thing I wanted to mention was Atium, or Atium, however you want to say it. The 9th one, because there's 8 elementic metals. There's 2 other ones that Kelsier mentioned. He didn't name them yet. And there's the 11th metal, right? So one of the 2 special ones is Atium. So we still don't know what the 10th one is, I guess, but one of them is Atium. And he says that Mistborns burn it. So I'm assuming, because he did mention Mistborn, so I'm assuming Mistings can't burn Atium. Or maybe I'm just reading too far into it. I don't know. And it lets you see like a few seconds into the future, basically. That is powerful stuff. Again, it's something where you look at and you're like, again, Brandon, I think, doing a very good job of writing something and then pulling it back. Because again, it's not like minutes into the future. It's not anything crazy. But a few seconds is enough to make you, obviously give you a huge advantage. And then even with that, another way to pull it back is to be like, oh, well, if someone else burns ATM, then you're both seeing like a million different options. So it's useless. Very, very smart, very clever. But yeah, and then we do see that in use later on in the book, because that's right before they go to Critic Shaw. She starts to burn ATM. She gets kind of a very small leg up on the Inquisitor, and then the Inquisitor starts burning ATM. So I guess that's either saying that not just Mistborn can burn ATM, or Inquisitors are Mistborn. I don't know. A lot, a few different questions are kind of spawned from that as well. Um, but yeah, Atium, interesting. Again, that maybe spawns more questions just in itself, where it's like, can the Lord Ruler burn Atium? I mean, I guess does he need Atium? Because he is at least the sliver of God. Does he know that that's what it does? Is that why he keeps it? Is that why he's made it super not abundant, scarce, I guess is the word. Maybe that's another reason why the nobility wants to buy Atium, because it's said that most, if not all, of the high houses, they all have Mistborn. So it's like, probably give some of that to their Mistborn in case they need it, that sort of thing. Yeah, we do learn a little about that. So, question we have: what is the 10th medal? What's the other one? All the medals have a pairing, so I'm wondering if Atium has a pairing, or if the 9th and the 10th medals are just special, and they're like, no, they don't have any connection to each other. That's why they're not part of the base 8. So, some questions there. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, good part, great part. Like I said, I like this part a lot more. First part wasn't bad or anything, but it is that, like, okay, we're out of the introduction phase, we're now into the meat of this story. So again, some questions we have going, just to recap some of the questions for next part. Who is Sazed really, right? Like, what can he do? Why is he so important? Obviously he has like the religion thing, which is really cool, really nice quirk for his character. But then, like, how powerful is he? What are his methods? All that stuff. I guess Villette with Elend, what's going to go on there, and then just generally, what is she going to do with the ball? Because, like, she can't keep just sitting in the corner, I imagine, right? We at least want to try to have some conversation, get into those circles and everything. Inquisitors, do we see any more progress with Kelsier's plan to take care of Inquisitors, whether it is actually fight them or divert them somewhere, kind of like they're doing with the garrison? Are we going to see more training with Vin and the individual members? I guess more A-team stuff, and if we do see the 10th medal, that's another question there. And then I guess the biggest one, immediately following the ending of the part, is Vin even alive? At this point, again, no future spoilers or anything, but at this part, just the way I think of books, or not even books, just like movies, and I guess movies not really, because movies are more self-contained, but TV shows, it's like, if they kill Vin, is like, what happens with the rest of the book, right? Or the rest of the trilogy, because as we know, there's 3 books out. It's like, is Vin just not in the rest? Like, that seems unlikely. That would be a crazy thing. That'd be like early Walking Dead, or like Game of Thrones, where they're like, we don't care if they're a main character, we're gonna kill them, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. So, either we can safely assume that she's gonna live, or we can sit here and say Brandon does not care, and he will kill off characters. So, at this point, again, if this is like your first book ever of Brandon Sanderson, you're like, what kind of writer is he? Is he not afraid to kill off main characters? Like, kind of the main character, I would say, Vin. I mean, the only argument there would be Kelsier would be maybe your main character, but we'll see. And then even if she does live, what condition is she in? Like, did that mess her up? Again, because it's like, she lives, but this is way more than her body can really handle. So maybe, like, maybe she can never really fight again. Like, she can still use metals, but maybe they're not as strong anymore. Or maybe she is, like, loses a limb or some sort of paralyzed or something. So again, maybe it's like, oh, we're not going to kill her, but we're going to make her role in all this a lot smaller. Or like her supposed usefulness a lot smaller, we have to divert it somewhere else. It's also possible. But yeah, I think that is everything. Lots of questions going into part 3. So next time we are going to obviously do part 3. Let's see. Let's just see what chapters that is. And I will bid you adieu. So that's going to be chapter 16 through 25, part 3. So So just so you know, part 1 was named The Survivor of Hathsin. Very aptly named, right? We're kind of introduction of Kelsier, all that stuff. Part 2 that we just covered was Rebels Beneath the Sky of Ash. That makes sense. We're kind of getting more and more into the plan and the crew. So part 3, Children of a Bleeding Sun. I mean, we know that like the sky's red. Children could be like, maybe that means we'll learn more history about the Lord Ruler, because there was little tidbits here and there kind of sprinkled so far in the book, the entire book so far. So maybe that's what that's going to be. This is a little bit of a longer part than part 2. It looks like it's about 180 pages or so, 170, 180. So maybe more stuff there. We'll see. But yeah, that is it. I guess so. That's it. Read those chapters. Talk about it next week. Yeah. Until next time, read more books. Books are a good time. And yeah, next week.